Today in this video we will understand the validation activity in Azure Data Factory. If you are new to this channel and haven't yet subscribed for this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe for this channel and also press bell button for instant notification. Also, if you are new to this channel and you are interested to learn more about Azure Data Factory, you can just type in the data channel and you can go to the playlist section and you can see there are different playlists, and we have a separate playlist for Azure Data Factory where we are explaining different concepts here. We would recommend you to please go through these videos to know understand the basics of Azure Data Factory. We have explained each and every activity here. And coming back to this video, right, we are specifically exploring what is validation activity in Azure Data Factory, and we'll understand in which scenario it will be useful. Let's get started. So validation activity, it is basically used to validate or used to validation of in the pipeline, used to ensure that the pipeline only continues to execute once it has validated the attached dataset reference exists. That means the reference can be anything here. So the dataset reference means, as you know, the dataset can be of like a database dataset you're creating, or you are creating a dataset on a blob storage, you are creating a dataset on a ADLS, whatever it might be, right? So if you're creating on a dataset on a SQL database, that means yeah, you will be able to search a table exist or not. Or if you're say if you're creating a dataset on a blob storage or a data lake storage, then you can able to check the reference or validate a particular file or folder exist or not. So that's the whole intention of a validation. And the most important thing here is you can see the pipeline will only continue to execute once it has validated. That means so it is a checkpoint that you are creating. If this checkpoint is not cleared, that means you are looking for a prerequisite here. If your prerequisite is not satisfied, you will not proceed. So that is very clear. So that's the reason in that scenario you will be using a validation activity. So, and the example, just a basic example, if you see, right, it is used to check if the folder exists or not, the file exists or not, or if a table exists or not for that matter, right? Or if the folder exists and it's not empty. So these are the different scenarios that you can think of where you want to validation. And say for example, you want to copy all the files existing in a folders from one location to another location. So if the folder only doesn't exist, or if the folder exists and not having any files, right, there is no point of proceeding a copy activity further or any other activities, right? So that's where it is used to kind of have that prerequisite check basically. So next we will quickly jump to the demo and see the actual hands-on on the validation activity. As you can see, we have an activity pane here, and in the activity pane you can pretty much type in validation, and you will get a validation activity which is in the general category. And once you just drag and drop this validation activity into the design area, so you will be having a setting here where you will be able to select the different data set. As you can click on new, it will clearly show which exactly the data sets that supports the validation activity, which exactly the connectors, sorry, connectors will be supporting this validation activity. You cannot use everything, right? Say for example, there is some say SAP kind of a table, right? So you cannot perform this validation on that SAP tables or SAP connectors, right? So as you can see, that is not listed here. So you can use validation activity only for this kind of connectors. So that's clear, right? And as part of the demo, as you can see, we are using two validations here. So to kind of understand, one we are using on the SQL database, which is a SQL, which is actually a SQL source, and another one we are using a delimited text on a which is created on a blob storage. This data set, if you see, right, we have created on the blob storage. So this is a blob storage link service. If you want to know about how do you create link services and data set, please, I would recommend you to check the previous videos where we have explained in detail. And coming to this first validation activity, right? So we are trying to show you, showing this that we have created a data set on top of a, say, SQL database, and so this is a link service. This data set will connect to this link service, right? And we are passing the table here dynamically. It's a dynamical. We have created a parameter here, and we will be able to pass the table name dynamically, right? And as you can see, the timeout is nothing but this is a. I mean, if the validation activity will keep on executing, and if it want to time out, right? So this is the timeout that we are giving, and the sleep is nothing but the interval between the next retries, right? And as you can see, we have given the config table here, and we will just quickly switch and see if the config table is there. Yes, the config table is there in the database that we are trying to see. In that case, if I execute this, it will show exist as a true. That means the validation activity is returning true. So we have validated the particular table is exist here, right? So only then, I mean, if the table is existing, so then we can proceed to kind of copy that table data from the source to the sink location. Otherwise, there is no point, right? So this is a prerequisite check to check whether the table exists or not. And similarly, in the next validation, we want to show whether a file exists, or whether a file exists in a blob storage or not. You can see we are passing the file name as a dynamic parameter here, which is a parameter defined at a dataset level. And if I kind of execute this and give the customer.csv file name as an input parameter, so here the intention is to check whether this file exists or not. Let us go and check whether in this blob container the file exists or not. Yes, we can see this file name, and that is the reason you can see the output of this activity, which is result showing that exist as true. And let us try to give some other file name and see whether what exactly this validation has to say. As you can see, the validation activity is continuously executing, right? So it is like it's been 2 minutes 40 seconds now. It is still in progress. That means it is in a loop until the timeout will get executed, right? I mean, until the 12 minutes or whatever minutes that we have defined here. So that much of time it will keep on existing. As you can see, this is in the format of day hour. That means it will be executing in like till next 12 hours. So 12 hours it keep on executing. It will be in progress. Basically, the execution of this, I mean, it will be in progress continuously until and unless the file is present. So as I can see, it is in progress. That means currently the sales file, I mean the sales.csv file that we are actually searching is not present in the blob storage, as you can see, right? So that is the reason it is continuously kind of executing. Okay. So now if I want to kind of make it successful, only the possibility is I have to upload a file or create a file here so that it will be able to find that. So now that I'm uploading a sales.csv file, so it is uploaded. Now we will go back to this and kind of refresh this, and you can see immediately after the file is uploaded, the activity succeeded, and it says the particular file exists. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there is only two possibilities, right? One is the file should get exist, or a table should get exist, or it will continuously execute, and the other possibility is it will get timeout. So if there is no basically there is no failure, right? So you don't have any failure in this case. Either it will get successful, only is like it might get timeout if the file or the table doesn't exist, or other possibility is so the file or the table should be created within that time. Within the time this timeout get exited. So this is, I mean, considering a real-time scenario, right? Let us consider you want to copy a file from from a database, right? So like if you want to do that, before doing that, you will just do this validation check whether the table exists or not. So if the table exists, then only you want to copy that file table to your location, or from one location to another location, right? Similarly for this also, if you want to copy the data from say like file location, right, like blob or ADLS, you will validate that whether the folder exists or the file exists, and then only perform that copy activity. If not, basically you can use some web activity and like call some email notification or any kind of notification that you want to send to a end user. So you can use this fail activity. If it is validation is getting failed, you can call that to notify the end user or a support or operation team or to come and look why this validation has failed. So one more thing, when we are especially selecting the file source, right? Um, so there is one option currently we have shown the file kind of thing, right? So instead of the file kind of thing, you can do the folder also. Like if you give the folder here, like just I'm giving some folder here, okay? And when you come back, let us kind of delete this parameter which is not needed for us, file parameter, right? And and you can clearly see here the option has been changed. Like if you are selecting, if you are passing a file name, these options are not there. Ignore, true, false are not there because it's just a file. But when you are selecting the folder, if you're not specifying any file, then automatically it will consider it as a folder. You have to pass a folder here, right? So then if you're passing a folder as an input, so then there are different options. So the first option, as you can see, if the child, it will check whether the folder exists or not. So it don't worry whether the child item exists, not exist, or nothing. So it just checks whether the folder exists or not. So the next the next, when you give this true, right, it will check both the file should exist and also the child items or the items within that uh, folder should exist. And the last option is to kind of check whether the file exists but and the folder is empty. So there are three permutation combination that you can see here. It will only get enabled when you are giving a folder as an input. If you are giving a file as an input, right, it won't work. It won't come in actually. So that we have already seen. So hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.